All right, welcome to Algebra 1. Little 4-6 action for you today. You covered 4 or 5 yesterday, so that this is going to kind of build on that. So now you can go ahead and write Algebra 1, 4, 6. Remember, whatever I write down, you are writing down as well. The watchful eye of Mr. Elson is upon you, so make sure you are paying attention. Remember, you are an active listener, right? You are not mooching other people's work. You are actively participating. Active learner, that's what it was, Gwyneth. Okay, so here we go. Write that down. Monomial, polynomial. Remember, a monomial is attached to multiplication or division. I gave you a couple examples there. We're going to throw down a polynomial here, a couple examples of polynomials. See, yesterday you worked on a monomial times a polynomial. And then today we're going to actually work on polynomials times polynomials. Okay? Now, when a polynomial, hopefully you all have this written down, a polynomial example is it's attached with addition or subtraction. So there we have a polynomial. That's actually a binomial, right? Because it's got 2 terms. And then we have another one we could have is z squared plus z minus 7. That would be a trinomial because there's 3 terms. Okay? Now, yesterday, hopefully you worked on the concept of, let's just do another example from ones that you did yesterday, multiply. Okay? What is it? Let's say you had a monomial 4x times x minus 7. So I have your monomial times x minus 7. What am I going to do with that 4x? Well, I'm going to, Roman, what am I going to do? Excellent, distribute in, good answer. So we distribute in and we end up with 4x times x is 4x squared minus 4x times 7 is 28x. And we would be done. That would be your answer. Okay, that's multiplication. Now, that's what we did yesterday, monomial times a polynomial. Today we're going to be multiplying polynomials together. Now, the key is the idea of distribution is the same thing that we're going to be working on today. All right, so let's start with multiply. Now, so the book actually shows a vertical form. I'm not actually going to show that right now. I'm going to first show the horizontal form. And the horizontal form is when I have n plus 7 times n plus 5. This is our example. This is called the horizontal form because it's all horizontal. It's not stacked vertically. I'll give you an example of a vertical later, but for now we're just going to do horizontal. Okay, now with horizontal, it is going to be, okay, it's really just glorified distribution is what it is. Even though it looks a little confusing, or the idea is it's just going to be glorified distribution. What we're going to do is we're going to do the FOIL method. So off on the side, I want you to write FOIL. It's an acronym, FOIL. And what it stands for is first, outer, inner, and last. First, outer, inner, last, okay? We're going to use this acronym to multiply together. Foiling, I'm going to give you a second to write that down because I know it'll just take a second. But I want you to remember now, as you're writing it, foiling is a glorified form of distribution. It's a glorified term for distribution. That actually may be a better saying. Foiling is a glorified term for distribution. Make sure to write that. So foiling is a glorified form of distribution, term for distribution. Okay, what do we mean by FOIL? So if I want to multiply these together, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first term, so use the FOIL idea first, okay. You're going to take your first terms. Your first term are n and n, so that's the f part. Now maybe I shouldn't have put that so close, but that's the f. So n times n is n squared. Your O stands for your outer terms. That's your outermost. So n times 5, that's your O part. N times 5 is 5n. And your I stands for inner, so your inner terms here, like this. And that's a 7. So 7 times n is 7n. That's a plus. And then your last terms are 7 and 5. So first, outer, inner, last. And your last terms are 7 and 5 multiplied together to be 35. Now in this case, your first terms, your outer terms, your inner terms, your last terms. And I can add these together because they have the same base and they have the same exponent of 1. So I get n squared plus 12n plus 35. And I am all done. Now, all that really is just distribution. So what it is, if I went to redo this, okay, I could say n plus 7 times n plus 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the n and I'm going to distribute the n in like this. I'm going to take this n and distribute into this term and this term, because that's what distribution does. So n times n is n squared, n times 5 is 5n. Then I'm going to take the 7 and I'm going to distribute in as well, so plus 7n plus 35, and you would end up with n squared plus 35, plus 12n plus 35. And you end up with the same answer. So you just distribute in, but we can use the acronym FOIL helps us with the order of how we multiply in. All right, let's do another example. Now, foiling only works when you have a binomial times a binomial. All right, let me give you an example where you have actually so that will be our second example, where you have a binomial times a trinomial. So number 2 here. What happens if I have x plus 3 times x squared plus 2x plus 4? Well, now I have a binomial times a trinomial, and I can't do FOIL because there's no first, outer, inner, last. Because I also have a first, but then there's an extra inner term. So we don't do FOIL, but we just do the distribution. So I'm going to take x and I'm going to distribute it in to all 3 parts. So I have x times x squared gives me x cubed. X times 2x gives me 2x squared. X times 4 gives me 4x. Then I'm going to take my 3 because I need to distribute that. And again, multiplication here, so we have to distribute it in. We're going to distribute the 3 into all 3 parts. So 3 times x squared is plus 3x squared. 3 times 2x is plus 6x, and 3 times 4 is plus 12. Okay, give you a second to write that down. Now, all right, I'm going to then combine my like terms. Now remember, we're adding, in this case they're all addition, we're adding like terms. When you add like terms, what do you have to have? You have to have the same 2 things, the same base and the same exponent. So there's no other x cubes, so I just write x cubed. Do I have any x squareds that I can combine? Well, sure. 2x squared plus 3x squared gives me a total of 5x squared. So I've dealt with it. I'm going to put a little cross through that. I'm going to use the pencil so we can still see it. Okay, and then I got rid of the x squareds. Now what about the x's? I have an x and an x. So 4x and 6x give me 10x. So now I've gotten rid of the 6x and the 4x, and I'm just left with the 12. I cannot combine any of these because we are adding. They have the same base. These 3 have the same base, but they have different exponents, so we cannot combine. Notice also, it'll talk about this. It'll talk about the descending order of x's. It's x cubed, x squared, x, no x's. That's descending order. rather than having x squared first and then x cubed, you want descending order. So x cubed, x squared, no x, or 1x in terms of x to the first and then no x's. All right, now, what about a vertical method? And I don't show this, I only show it because the book has it, and some people like this method. You can use it, but you won't see it in the book very often after this lesson, so this will be number 3. What they have for the vertical method is they have it stacked like this: r squared plus 2r minus 5, and then they have 3r, and then they have minus 2, and then they have this, and they're going to say multiply. Give you a second to write that down. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to distribute. Stand by. Out of ice water. I have to settle for a non-ice water. Okay. Subliminal messaging, Valley Christian School, number 1. Okay, now, here we are. We are going to take this and we're going to multiply them together. So what they want you to do in the vertical method, it's the same as what we just did, except it's stacked vertically. So you're going to take 3r, you're going to distribute the 3r into all 3 parts. So 3r times r squared gives you 3r cubed. 3r times 2r gives you 6r squared. 3r times a negative 5 gives you negative 15r. So you just take the 3, distribute it into all 3 parts, and then you're going to take the negative 2 and distribute it. So negative 2 times r squared is negative 2r squared. Negative 2 times 2r is negative 4r. A negative 2 times a negative 5 is a positive 10. Combine your like terms. Are there any other r cubes? Remember, we want r cubed first. So 3r cubed. We have 6r squared minus 2r squared gives us a positive 4r squared. Remember, we don't mess with the exponent or the base when you're adding and subtracting. And then we have negative 15r minus 4r. Signs are the same, the negative and the negative, so you add 15 and 4 is 19r. Keep the sign, so negative, and then plus 10. R cubed, r squared, r, no r's. You're done with that one. That's the vertical form. We don't show that very often, excuse me. We don't show that very often. Okay, now, let's go do, let's do this one, solve. This is number 4. So if I give you 3x plus 5 times 2x minus 3 equals x minus 1, 6x plus 5. So this is an equation, so now we're going to solve. We need to, if you remember the steps of solving, the first one was multiply or distribute, combine like terms, add, subtract, multiply. The same applies. We're going to distribute. Now, we can use the FOIL method idea, first, outer, inner, last, because we have a binomial times a binomial. Again, I emphasize just distribution. So 3x times 2x, I'm going to take 3x times 2x is going to give me 6x squared. 3x times a negative 3 will give me minus 9x. Plus, take the 5 and distribute it in, plus 10x. 5 and the negative 3 is minus 15. Equals, I'll let you try the distribution before I go. Try the distribution over here, doing the same thing that we just did over here, but using x minus 1 to 6x plus 5. All right. X times 6x, 6x squared. X times 5 plus 5x. Negative 1 times 6x. Negative 6x. Negative 1 times 5 minus 5. Now, combine your like terms. So let's go back over to here to the left, combine our like terms. 6x squared is nothing to combine to. Negative 9 plus 10 is a positive 1x. We don't write the 1, we just write positive x. We have 6x squared stays. Then we have a 5x minus 6x gives us negative x, because 5 minus 6 is negative 1, negative 1x minus 5. Now, you add or subtract. So I want to take my 6x squared and let's subtract that from both sides. And what conveniently works out for us is that when you subtract the 6x squared, those end up canceling. So I'm left with x minus 15 is equal to a negative x minus 5. Now at this point, we want to get our x's together. So let's add our x's together. And then at the same time, I'm going to get rid of the 15. I'm going to do two steps at once. I'm going to add the 15 over to both sides. So give it a pause there. Okay. So I added the x to combine it with this x. So x plus x is 2x. And then I added the 15 because it's minus 15. So I'm going to add the 15 to get it over here. So 15, so negative 5 plus 15 is 10. And then, so we distributed, we combined like terms, we added, subtracted, and now we're going to divide both sides by 2. X equals 5. Okay, now the final step here, or the final is example, express as a polynomial. We know what a polynomial is. All right, so this is number 5 here. If I gave you, let's do this. The cube of a minus 3, what they want you to